you're okay with going first, right? This is you, Yassir? You're okay? To go first?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good morning. So excited to see you all here this early hour. I feel like this is the perfect time, the weekend right before Valentine's Day. We're like surrounded by chocolate flowers and hearts everywhere. Perfect time to talk about reigniting the fire and healthy relationships. And so I'm so glad to see you all here this morning to hear these two wonderful speakers. I can't wait to hear what they have to share with us. So to introduce myself a little bit to those of you who don't know me, I work for an organization here locally called Safe Alliance, and we're a large organization. And when I first started working there about 15 years ago, we worked just on issues around sexual and domestic violence, just about things that really focused on that relationship and that dynamic. But recently, we also merged with the Austin Children's Shelter, and we spent a lot of time talking about healthy relationships, and I think the merger between the two programs shows how important it is in society, how the relationship between two partners really doesn't just affect those two people, but it affects the broader society. And so I really am grateful for the opportunity for us to talk about that foundational relationship and how it impacts not just our own lives, but our communities. So I was reading up a little bit before I came this morning about how much having that healthy relationship in your life impacts other things in your life that you'd never imagine. Like your success at work, your financial success. When you have a good foundation in your intimate relationships, then it gives you the security and the stability to be able to step out and reach for other opportunities. It helps you to be able to seek success in other areas as well, because you're not having to deal with the drama, right? So I was like, that's subhanAllah, so amazing, the way that so many things in our lives work, that when we put in that work in the foundation, that's work we don't have to do other places, right? That makes our other work easier. And so I thought, what a great opportunity this morning to come together and talk about this. So first I want to start by introducing Sheikh Yassir Fazaga, who will be our first speaker. And he will tell us a lot more about himself, and I'm sure many of you know him before coming this morning. He has a degree, a bachelor's degree in Islamic studies, and a master's degree in psychotherapy, and now pursuing a second master's degree, which is really impressive, because I know when I finished my master's, I was really hesitant about ever taking a class in anything ever again. So I'm impressed. The second master's here, and I am representing with my burnt orange at his current school, University of Texas. All Longhorns up here, so it's going to be good information. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Sheikh Yassir to start us off this morning with talking about reigniting the fire.
Okay. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And how are you all doing this morning? If you think this is cold, I was in Detroit yesterday, and that was cold, people. So this is almost summertime compared to what was happening yesterday in Detroit. But it is good to be with you, and thank you for putting. Is it easy if I stand up? That'd be better if I stand up? Maybe we'll come on this side of the table?
Sure, make yourself comfortable.
So it's good to be with you, and thank you for being here. This is something that I really, really love to do, and that is just share with people pointers as to what we can do to improve our relationships. And it's interesting that the way that Shireen started, because the longest study.
I only correct him because he always calls me Shireen. It's a habit, it's a thing.
So the longest study that was done by Harvard about happiness, you might have heard about this. The longest study that started back in the 1930s, they followed these students and they wanted to see what makes people happy. It's been going on for 75 years at this point. And they started with about 839 students back then. But the end of the study is that they said that the best predictor of your health was not your blood level, was not your sugar level, it was how good are your relationships. And so that the better the relationship, the happier the individual is. And even when people study as why people work where they work, the majority of people think that we work where we get most money. And it turned out that most people like where they work because they feel appreciated there, or they get along with the people that are there. And money is not necessarily the very first motive as to why people do what they do. So what we're looking for is, and I love the term, we're looking for healthy relationships, not perfect relationships. A good relationship is not a problem-free relationship. That does not exist. What we're looking for is acknowledging the issues when they come up, having the humility and the courage of addressing them, and also making sure that we have the tools to solve these issues when they come up. And as you know, when we speak about reigniting the fire or having a healthy relationship, we are assuming an amount of work and effort that needs to be done. Reminded of the story, the guy that bought a house, he had a nice back and front yard, and he hired this landscape engineer to help him set up the gardens and what have you. And he said, I want you to get me a special kind of soil that won't allow any weeds to grow in it. I want you to get me like a specifically genetically engineered grass that would not exceed a certain height. I want you to get me kind of trees that won't creep under my sidewalk and crack it open. And I want you to get me special kind of sprinkles. And the guy said, time out. He said, if you want a garden, you have to be willing to do some gardening. And the way that we look at things is that we want that garden with a minimum effort on our part. And this would not work. And like that garden, relationships do need that care. Because believe it or not, initially, relationships go through stages. So, we got the novelty and the passion and the excitement in the initial stage. And then things just settle down, but we don't want them to get to the point that they are dull. And that's why every now and then it's a good idea to reignite that fire, and that's what we are here for today. So, because of the limited time that we have, I'm going to make a suggestion that 3 things, if we do, would actually improve the quality of our relationships. I love to term them as the AAA. Attention, affection, appreciation. And these 3 things, they really do have an immediate impact on all kinds of relationships, be they the romantic relationships, the familial relationships, or just all kinds of relationships. If you implement these 3 things, I think they would be absolutely crucial in improving our relationships. Attention. That is our way of telling the people in our lives that they are the priority in our lives, that they are the #1 people in our lives. And the way that we express this, not only by words, but also by implementing this idea of attention. Give them this attention. And I'm sorry, just coming from the background that I come from, always looking to the Prophet ﷺ as our model, and want to see what did the Prophet, peace be upon him, do. I love the fact that they say that whenever his daughter would come in, Fatima, and he has this delegation that he is talking to, as soon as Fatima would walk in, they said that the Prophet, peace be upon him, would get up and he would walk towards her. He would kiss her and he would make her sit next to him. This meeting is really important. But the minute she walked in, he made sure to tell her and express and tell others that when she walks in, she is the most important. So this notion of attention, and by the way, attention isn't really about a lot of big things, but it's about a lot of little things that are constantly used to express that we convey the message to the people around us that they are a priority to us. So first one is attention. Second one is appreciation. As a therapist, I can tell you most of the couples that come to me are people who are starving, literally starving. There is emotional starvation, but they're starving to be acknowledged for the good that they bring to our lives, and also starving to be acknowledged as good for us. Appreciation simply means I see the good in you, and I also see the good that you do. And it's not enough that I just see it, I must be able to express it to the people around me. I appreciate your presence in my life, and I do see the good that you do, and I acknowledge it. I love what they're doing nowadays in elementary schools. They have the I got you card. I don't know if you have children in the school. And the point here is that the tendency is that we catch people when they're doing wrong, but rarely do we catch people when they are doing that which is right. So what happens is that these teachers would have cards and they would just be walking around the school, and they would catch a kid doing something that's right, and they say, I got you. I got you, I caught you doing something right, and they hand them over a card. And at the end of the week, the child that has most cards gets to have lunch with the principal. But the point here is, people were caught doing that which was right, and the people around them were not afraid of pointing that was good. And I acknowledge and I appreciate the good that you are doing. Feeling appreciated is music to our ears. We love being told, that was good, that was beautiful, that was really nice, thank you for doing this. That is like really, it's not just for kids. That is music for our ears. It's also like, literally, it's a nourishment for our souls. And please keep in mind that every behavior that gets rewarded is a behavior that is most likely to be repeated. So the more we reward these behaviors by our attention, acknowledgement, and appreciation, this is our way of guaranteeing that this behavior is going to be repeated again in the future. Appreciate the actions that they do. Name it out. Appreciate the good that they bring into our lives. Appreciate their presence in our lives. Appreciate the good qualities that they imbibe, that they have, that we see in them. I think that is very, very crucial. The last one is affection. And that is expressing the positive feelings that we have towards these people. Words such as, I love you again, that is part of the music to our ears. Nowadays, they talk about the most difficult sentences in our language is, I love you and I am sorry. What is the most common sentence nowadays in the US? Most common, huh? I like that. Say that again. Oh, the question, oh, you guys can hear me? Can you hear me? Yes. So that part. So the question is, what is the most common sentence in the US nowadays?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
Thank you.
Thank you? I don't know. Some people say it's made in China. That's in any case. So what happens is, again, this idea of things that are easy in theory to accept, but difficult to do in practice. A genuine I am sorry, not just to finish a conversation, or a genuine I love you. These are like really, really difficult things to do. And as they say, having positive feelings but never expressing it is like buying a gift, wrapping it, but never presenting it. And every time you see me, you say, I have a gift for you. And I'm saying, no, you don't. Still, we feel deprived. I haven't heard anything nice or sweet. Nobody's saying anything to me. And unfortunately, sometimes when we do not find love at home, sadly, sometimes we end up looking for it somewhere else, because we want, we want to fill in that emptiness. We want to fill in that starvation that we are going through. So it is important that these ideas are verbally expressed, and also in action as well. And it takes some kind of knowing the other person. People, which language do people understand? People like to be told, other people like to be given. So just knowing the language that the other person talks, I think that is also crucial and is very important. So how do I become a person that can actually imbibe these three things? Attention, affection, and appreciation. I think for a healthy relationship to take place, we also need the other triple A's. That is availability, accessibility, and approachability. Availability goes with attention. Approachability usually leads to attention, to appreciation. So availability, accessibility, and approachability. When we become that person, I think it's very easy for people to want to be in our vicinity. And I love the teachings of the Prophet, peace be upon him, again, where he describes a believer, and he said, "Al-mu'minu alifun yu'laf wa la khayra fi man la ya'laf wa la yu'laf." Truly, a believer is one who is loving and is lovable, and there is no goodness in he or she who are neither loving nor are they lovable. So the point is, what makes people lovable? It is this notion of availability, approachability, accessibility. This idea of this person is close, this person is chill, this person is... And what that does is that it makes us the kind of people that people want to be around. I love that saying, some people bring happiness wherever they go, and some people bring happiness whenever they go. And we want to be that person that brings happiness wherever they go, not whenever they go. And again, these, availability, approachability, and accessibility, they really do this to us. One last point. Well, how do you do this practically? So now I see all these A's, but how do I do them? Again, very quickly, the implementation of the 5 T's. Time, talk, trust, touch, tease. Time. You can't really say, how are you doing, and look at your watch. That tells me you really don't have that time. And the best expression of attention is time. Time is crucial. Second one is talk. If you're available, accessible, approachable, I really want to talk to you. And it doesn't have to be something really important or super important. And subhanAllah, it's interesting because they say that we are capable of 8 different levels of depth as far as our conversations and communications are concerned. But most people go to sleep after the second one. So the first one is asking cliche questions. Hey, how are you doing? Fine. You really don't care how they are doing, and they really don't care to tell you how they are doing. You pick up your kids from school. How was your day at school? Fine. What did you do? Nothing. And everything is okay. Despite the fact that they were at school for 8 hours and they told you they did nothing and you're okay with it, mashallah. So that is what we call cliche questions. And then after that, we go into what we call asking about facts. Did you do your homework? Did you eat your food? Did you put your plate away? Did you make the appointment? Did you cancel the appointment? Did you make the payment? Did you get the payment? And then people go to sleep. That's as far as we go. But when we have the time and people feel that we are approachable, accessible, and available, then people can start sharing their ideas. Then they can start sharing their feelings. and then they want to connect. So what happens is that we get deeper and deeper as far as connection is concerned. So time and talk, and then this idea of touch. Touch is really, really important as well. The other day we were having a Father's Day at school. I think it was in November. They have Father's Day in November at APA, Austin Peace Academy. I don't know why. But they had all these 4th graders, and they had to complete a sentence. And the sentence was, I love my father because, and they're supposed to fill in. I love my father because, and they would say something. And here I am listening to these sentences, and I'm like psychoanalyzing these kids. No, I wasn't. But I'm just listening, and I'm just looking for a common factor. What do you think was the most repeated statements? 4th graders. I love my father because he plays with me.
He buys me things.
He buys me things. He hugs me. Spends time with me.
He's funny.
He's funny. Huh?
He is kind.
He's kind. It's nice, it's around that area, but most of these kids said, I love my dad because he tickles me. He tickles me. And as I'm listening to this, I'm waiting for the word touch. He lets me get on his back. And there is this notion of, it is fun, but there is that element of, there was a touch that was involved in that process. And I thought that was really, really beautiful. That these kids actually, their fun time with that is when there is an element of touch that is involved in the process. So please do not undermine that notion of touch. Last 2 is trust and tease. Trust is not just about confidentiality. Trust is, you will not use that information against me at some point. You will not jump to your own conclusions. You will not hold this against me. You will give me the time to finish the story. It's okay to be vulnerable in your presence. It's okay to express my weaknesses without necessarily being labeled as weak. So I need to trust these things. And when I do that, man, that's like some deep level of connection that is taking place. And the last one is tease. By that I mean, have fun, people. One of the most beautiful ways of just keeping a relationship on fire is this idea of people being able to laugh together, and also believe that it's okay to laugh at each other together. And that is really nice. When people do this, just love the idea, that your kids feel safe enough around you to make fun of you, knowing that you will laugh along with them. The other day, my kids, they're sitting in the back of the car I'm driving, and they start talking to each other and they're giggling. And then they said, Baba, we have a question for you. I said, what is it? They said, Baba, what do girls like? My boys are 9, please don't tell them I told you that story. So they're giggling and they're laughing and said, Baba, what do girls like? And like in my heart, I'm just laughing so hard. It's like a conversation that I just love to have with them. And I said, you mean like, what do they like to buy when they go to the mall for shopping? They said, Baba, come on, you know what we're talking about. And I said, no, I don't. They said, Baba, what do girls like about boys? And I'm like, I'm really loving it. So I said, I don't know, what do you guys think? So they said, Baba, we think that girls like nice boys. I said, yeah. Rich boys? I said, yeah. And then they said, good looking boys. And I said, very good. And then they were quiet, and then they looked at me and they said, Baba, why did Mama marry you? And I said, for my looks. Why are you laughing? Okay? But that is the idea of, it's okay for people to feel safe enough that they can laugh with you and sometimes at you. That is not necessarily an expression of insult. It's an expression of, I feel safe, and I can trust. I don't think I've taught you anything that you did not know before, but the idea is that we remind each other of things that we've already known, but sometimes we forget to practice. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep our families healthy, Ya Rabbil Alameen, and keep our relationships sound and beautiful. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Salam.
Thank you, Sheikh Yassir. I'm sorry?
I'm just asking Sarah if she wanted to get out or she.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sheikh Yassir. I was expecting also a sixth T, which is tea, right? And, you know, as a Palestinian, I think that time, drinking tea, that maybe could be number 6. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everything that you shared, and I feel like I could listen to you all day. And next we're going to hear from Musarrat Yousufali, who is a psychotherapist here in Austin, who serves families, children, and she also got her undergrad from the University of Texas before going to Columbia University for her master's in social work. And she's also my friend, so I'm very glad to introduce her and hear what she has to share about 5 ways to a healthy relationship, 5 hacks. So these are good ones to put away. I feel like we've got lots of good tangible takeaways today, so I look forward to hearing what you have to share.
Second, if you're going to repeat the information, well, I think we're just going to really add to what Sheikh Yassir has already told you. So 5 hacks for a happier relationship. And I'm going to begin with a little bit of a story, and I did take permission to share this story. Last month in January, my husband and I and my little daughter, we went on a trip to the DC area. Now we're right now in a vulnerable time, and so we were on a really, really strict budget. And you know, finances is one of the top things that couples argue about. And so we had, you know, we planned something, we found a place to stay, it was within our budget, and we went on our trip. We arrived there, we get in the car, and we are going to this place that we're going to stay. We said we will put our stuff down, you know, say our prayers, relax a little bit, and then we'll go and get something to eat. So we reach there, and he goes in first, and so he goes in, and then he comes out, and as soon as he comes out, he tells me the place is reeking of smoke. Now, neither do I smoke, or he doesn't smoke either, so we are really, really sensitive to smoke. I went inside and said, well, just let's look at it, and again, it was completely reeking with smoke. Really, really couldn't imagine ourselves spending 5 nights there. So we said, okay, we said our prayers, and we said, you know, let's go to eat and figure out what we want to do. So get in the car, and he had started to look for a place to stay instead, and he found something that was kind of reasonable, and we were like, okay, we can, you know, I think this will work, except that it started, we would have to stay 1 night at this place. So he hands me the phone, and he says, here, what do you think of this one? And, you know, if you think it's good, go ahead and book it. So I take the phone, and I said, well, why not try to look for something that starts today? And I do what I do. I go to my favorite place, which is Priceline.com. So I go to Priceline and find a place, and I'm like, oh, I found this really great 3.5-star hotel, blah, blah, blah. I book it, okay? We went and got our stuff. We're feeling good. We found something that's slightly reasonable, and anyway, we went, we had lunch. Now we're going to the hotel, okay? We're driving toward the hotel, and oh my God, I forgot to look at something very critical. Now we're in the DC area, so I forgot to check whether this hotel had parking or not. And when I called, I found out it was between $32 and $36 per day to park in their garage. Now, here we are in a budget, right? Finances are stressed. We are at a vulnerable place in life. So both him and I are feeling really, really bad about this situation. So the 5 hacks that I'm going to share with you are things that I use, you can use in really high stress situations. You can use all the time to keep yourselves from exploding, to keep yourselves, you know, regulated in these really, really difficult times. And I'll also share how I use these strategies. Okay, so first I want to say that we are biological beings. And what I mean by that is our brain has a huge impact on what we're doing every day. Every moment of our life, Our brain is scanning the environment, looking and assessing the information that's coming in. Right here, while you're listening, there's so much input coming in, and your brain is working, and it's trying to figure out, am I safe? Is there a threat? It's constantly doing this. Second thing is we are emotional beings. Whether we are man or woman, we all have emotions. How we express those emotions may be different. There may be some people who may be more expressive, they may know their emotions more, they may feel their emotions more intensely. There may be other people who don't feel their emotions and may feel like, I'm fine, I'm great, but there are lots of emotions that we are constantly feeling and going through. Our brain, I believe in 1 second, changes between 3 to 4 states of emotions. We don't feel it all the time. We feel pretty even keel. However, our brain is constantly going back between, am I safe, am I not safe, am I happy, am I neutral, what's my state of being internally. Okay, so the first strategy I want to share with you is to sync up your nervous system. And the way that you can do that is when you are in 2 different spaces. So let's just say at the end of the day, one has been, both of you have been working or one has been working. When you come home, you can sync up your nervous systems and help regulate each other by giving each other a hug. Now, it's not just a hug where you hug and how's your day and goodbye, but it's a hug where you hug the person and you don't let them go until you notice them relax, okay? When you've noticed them relax and you can feel it in your body, then you know that you are syncing in with them and that they are regulating with you. Another way you could also do it is with eye contact. So say you're in the kitchen and you see your spouse entering, you have eye contact coming in. While you're talking to them, maintain that eye contact. And again, maintain the eye contact until you can notice the eyes soften, the pupils become small, and you can see and notice and feel now that they are regulated, okay? And one recommendation is to, when you're entering spaces together, to try to greet each other first. You are the king and queen of your marriage. So, make each other the king and queen and first greet each other. One of the recommendations is even before greeting your children, and it's not like you push them aside, but connecting with your spouse gives a message to your children, this is an important relationship. You are modeling that happy, healthy relationship to them. Okay, so the second strategy is the word but. Kick that out the door and use the word and instead. I love this little trick. When we say something, 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 but whatever, we are negating that first part of what we have just said, right? And so just by substituting the word and, we're saying this first point of view is valid, and I want you to take into consideration this other point of view as well. You chose the restaurant last time, and I would really like to choose what restaurant we go to this time. You've been talking about X school for the children, and I really, really like the ideas you've been sharing. And I've been doing some research, and I found this other school that I would also like you to look into and take into consideration. So just a simple little change in your language can bring you in more connection within your relationship. So, I'll go back to that again. So give the amygdala the gift of time. Like I said, we are biological beings. When we get activated, what I mean by that, angry, afraid, upset, our amygdala is usually the first place that gets the message. So the amygdala is the lower part of the brain, okay? And whether you consider yourself, again, kind of going back to what I said earlier, an emotional person or not, your amygdala is working, okay? So when you are upset and you are stuck give yourself the gift of time. On average, it takes the amygdala 20 minutes before it can connect with the prefrontal cortex. So this is a handy model of the brain. This is the amygdala, and it connects to all parts of the brain. When we get activated, when we get angry, we literally flip out in our brains, and so we lose the connection between the amygdala and the thinking parts of the brain. So you cannot reason with a person who is activated. You just need to give it time. For some people, it may be longer. If you've had, histories where there have been trauma or lots of stress, your activation may take longer. Sometimes it takes somebody longer than 20 minutes. It could take them an hour. It could take them 2 hours. Whatever that time is, giving them that time, and then coming back and saying, okay, let's discuss what went wrong. Okay, so I really wanted to do 6, but I wanted to stick to the 5 number. So this is my 3.5. So, and this is what Sheikh Yassir was saying earlier. Take a moment, right? That attention piece. So take a moment, bring attention to yourself. Take a breath, before saying something. Take a deep breath. Like, what is this about? What am I feeling? What's my emotion? What's their emotion? The taking a breath, it sends oxygen to the brain immediately, and immediately you have a small sense of calming, a small sense of connection. It will help the amygdala get regulated once again. And then also when we take that pause, we might just realize that it's not about us, it's about them. They're feeling frustrated. It's not that I'm taking on the blame, it's something that they are struggling with, right? Or it's a vulnerable situation, for example. Okay, name it to tame it. When we name the emotion that we are feeling, we reduce the intensity of that emotion. So when we are feeling, again, upset, the amygdala is activated. One of the simplest things that you can do is name that emotion. So when we are talking to each other, and when we are going past the 2 very superficial layers of communication, what is going on? You're feeling frustrated. This is a really highly vulnerable time for you. We're trying to figure out whether to have children or not. We're trying to figure out what our financial situation is. You've had a history of things being taken away from you. Your family has had lots of hardships, right? We can tune in to the emotion the other person is feeling and experiencing, and when we name it, their amygdala literally starts to not be as activated. So in brain scan, you see that naming the emotion, the amygdala is not lit up
So when
as
you're
much.
saying I'm feeling frustrated, or what do you mean?
Yeah, yes, I feel frustrated. And ask yourself, what's my partner's emotion at this moment, right? And then the last one is to befriend compassion. It's really, really important that we are compassionate to ourselves and to each other. So, telling yourself okay, you made a mistake, it's okay, we can do better next time. So in my situation, for example, I was feeling bad. I had, didn't look at the parking situation. I didn't look for this particular symbol. I didn't know. So instead of, berating myself and feeling bad about myself, I used self-compassion. I told myself, Musarrat, it's no big deal. Yes, you made a mistake. Next time, now you know to look for this parking symbol when you're on Priceline, right? And then this actually allows the brain to work better next time. When we are harsh to ourselves, we think by being harsh, next time we will remember to do better. That's not true. Next time, our motivation to do better is actually much, much less. So these are all the strategies that I use in that situation. Using self-compassion with myself, using self-compassion with my partner, and letting him know, we made a mistake, it's okay, we're gonna get through this, it's gonna pinch when the credit card bill comes, and it's not the end of the world. Let's focus on enjoying the time now. It was naming it, right? Telling myself, oh, I'm so disappointed at myself, I'm so frustrated. It's naming it for him. You really, really feel upset. You felt that I didn't trust you. I didn't trust your judgment of what you initially found. You're naming all the emotions he may have been experiencing. It was taking a moment. And these two, giving the amygdala time. The asset we had is he was driving. My daughter likes me to sit next to her in the back, so I was in the back of the seat, and it gave us that time. I was in the back, I was doing my breathing, I was doing my self-compassion in my head, and then when we reached the hotel and we came together, then I could use all these other things, using the handshake, using the eye contact, using hug, like, okay, we messed up, it's okay, let's let's enjoy it. Let's when you're able to connect emotionally, then you're able to tap into like, okay, we have no choice, we have to stay here, there was no return policy, let's enjoy this Sheraton hotel we're at. Okay, it's done, let's enjoy our next 5 days. So so these are some of the hacks that you can do every day of your life, especially when those heated moments come, to bring more happiness.
Thank you for that, Musarrat. I know I learned a lot, and definitely my hugging routine is going to change. A lot of new tools that I have for sure. I really appreciate that. And so next we have the opportunity for a conversation. They shared a lot of great information, but I know some of us come in with our own questions, and so this is a great opportunity for us to be able to have the discussions about what's important to us and get answers from some wonderful experts who have expertise to share with us today, fortunately. So does anybody have a question that they'd like to start with? And if not, if you'd like to think about them, I have a couple that we can start with. The first one is that, when you've been married for a long time, in a relationship for a long time, sometimes you can get patterns established that maybe aren't ideal, right? So how can you change patterns after you've been in a relationship for a long time, after you've been doing things the same way for a long time? How can that pattern change in a relationship? Either of you?
So for me, it's all about that attention, awareness piece. Mindfulness is really about bringing attention and awareness to our thoughts and feelings and everything that we're going through. So first, it's taking a moment to evaluate, like, what is this pattern? Why is this happening? And then really, when we making an intention to change it. So a lot of times we know what needs to be changed. For example, let's say you whatever that pattern is, you're going out and you're constantly always late, for example, right? You know that you just need to set your clock or mental clock 15 minutes earlier. First, having that awareness, right, will allow you to say, like, okay, actually we're going on a trip today. This is a pattern I've created. What can I do to make that change happen? So for me, it's really that attention, awareness, bringing that mindfulness piece in.
I would answer it in the form of a story. So sometimes construction workers, they would be out in the outskirts of the city and nothing is close by, and they would have to bring in their own food because there is nothing close by. So this guy, it's lunchtime and they're eating their food, he opens his sandwich and it turns out to be a bologna sandwich. So he looks at it and goes, bologna, bologna, every day bologna, and he slams the sandwich down on the floor. And his friend looks at him and goes, hey man, if you don't like bologna, why don't you just tell your wife you don't like bologna? And he looked at him and said, man, my wife doesn't make my sandwich, I make my own sandwich. So this guy woke up in the morning, made a bologna sandwich. Comes lunchtime, and he expected a steak with some caviar or steak. If you made bologna in the morning, you're having bologna for lunch that day. And I think what happens is sometimes we have a tendency that we make the bologna, but then we expect to have a different meal than the one that we have actually made. So the minute we become aware of it, then what happens is that we want to be the ones initiating that change and bringing about that alternative. You know, we speak about the things that we can do to reignite the fire. If you not reignite the fire, at least do not be guilty of dimming that fire. And there is one thing that it's such a terrible habit. If we get into, I believe that it can really deflate the relationship. Constant criticism. I think of all the things that I have seen amongst couples, constant criticism is the worst habit to have, where a person is constantly pointing out what's wrong. Remember, these people come from a good place. They're not necessarily coming from a bad place. They are your very good quality control managers. You just wish that they would leave that plate at work and not bring it home with them. Because they're constantly about finding out what's wrong and what needs to be improved and what could have been done better. So what that does is that it really does not leave much room to celebrate the good that is going on. And sometimes, you know, getting rid of a bad habit is not necessarily by just focusing on that bad habit. Sometimes introducing better things will just diminish that thing. So, you know, if you're that constant, you know, critical person, well, maybe you can just make it a point that every day before I start criticizing, I am going to make sure that I point out at least 5 good things. So, this mom, she said that she picked up her kids from school every day, and the minute they get into the car, they all start complaining about what went wrong at school. So she said, time out. You can tell me all the things that went wrong at school, but before you do that, you have to tell me the 5 best things that happened at school, and then you can complain what you want. So they all said, all okay. And then eventually what she notices is that they were not complaining anymore, because throughout the day they were taking mental notes of all the good things that are happening, because they needed to report to mom at the end of the day the 5 best things. Now the beautiful part of the story is they started celebrating things that they have never paid attention to before. Stacy let me borrow her eraser. What? What does that even mean? But what happens is that they started celebrating all these little good things that were taking place, and I thought that was really, really beautiful. I was at the library and I'm looking at this book, and it's like 365 things to be happy about. And each page was a picture with one word. 365 things to be happy about. And I'm looking into the book at, you know, number of days in the year. It's like, you know, these are the little things that we need to celebrate. And I'm looking into the book, and I'm sorry, but this is just the racist in me talking now. I say crazy white people. And look at these things, you know, these things that I'm talking about. What was number 3? Chocolate chip cookies. And I'm like really angry right now. I said, really, are you kidding me? What was number 11? Reruns of Steinfeld, and I'm just like really angry now, and I'm looking at all these things, and the point of the book was, the tendency is that we wait for all big things, but in the midst of it, we forget to celebrate these little things. Get into the habit of hold back on the criticism, not because you're blind, not that because it's wrong, but see if we can at least, you know, balance things out, and that will be one bad habit that we can get rid of.
Excellent, thank you so much. And thinking about that, about looking at our own habits and how that plays a part in our relationship, what if one person watched this on Facebook Live or came today and they're like, yes, I feel so ready to do better in my relationship and make my relationship better, but their partner didn't come with them today, or their partner didn't watch, or their partner is not on the same page. What advice would you give to somebody who their partner maybe isn't willing to put in the work and the time and the effort and make those changes or have that reflection on how their own actions impact their family, their partner, everyone else? What advice would you give to the person who feels like maybe they're trying to steer the ship on their own?
I think that's a really, really great question. So 2 things. Number 1 is, are you genuinely doing it, or are you testing your partner? This is really, really crucial, okay? And what happens is that usually when we test, we are expecting what we call immediate gratification. So I'm changed, I feel so good, I'm going to give the attention, appreciation, and affection. And you go there and you do it, and the other person didn't even see it. And it's like, what the WTF? What's going on? And you're thinking to yourself, like, So what happens is that we do it, and because we did it, we expect immediate gratification. And chances are sometimes we have pushed that person so far away that when we are ready, they may not necessarily be ready. So that's one. So please do not do some of these things with the mindset that I am testing the other person. And when we do that, we actually have a project, and it is not genuinely something that is done. And look, it took us some time to get here, and it might take them some time to get to where we are as well. And the next point is immediate gratification. I mean, just listen, we live in a culture nowadays where, does everybody have Prime Amazon? I was told that you can I thought Prime Amazon was have it delivered in 2 days. I was told, no, it's 2 to 3 hours, man. That's how immediately things are happening nowadays. And sometimes we expect our relationships to be fixed as fast and as soon. So I would say what Musarrat said earlier, and that is, look man, we're stuck with $30 a day walking in DC. I was really looking forward to the ending of that story, but we didn't get it. But what happens is, it is what it is. Let us see if we can enjoy the ride. And sometimes we forget to enjoy the ride. So I would say, start doing that and give and allow the other person time to join in. And do not test them, and do not expect immediate gratification as a result of what you have just done.
So be patient.
Sure. Nice way of putting it. Be patient.
Yeah, so I have lots of mainly women who come to me and they're ready, they want to make a change, and their spouses are not ready. And I say to them, you can absolutely make a difference by you changing, by you taking ownership of whatever needs to change. So if you can think of a marriage like a dance, this is not my analogy, but think of marriage like a tango dance, right? A tango dance, you have to be really, really in tune with the other partner. So really good tango dancers, they know the partner's move, they're gonna, and so when one person changes their moves, what's the other person gonna do?
Change them.
They have to change. If this person is dancing a different way, that's different, this person has no other choice but to change, right? And so I would say majority of the times, when one person puts in the effort, makes the change, then yes, it will be effective. Only, if there's a severe case of mental health, personality disorder, something really, really, really severe, then it could be that it wouldn't work. But majority of the time, it can work.
And does anybody else have any questions?
I have a question. In terms of, say, anger, say that some people, they go from 0 to 200 in less than a second. How would I, being a receiver, be able to help them calm down? And from their part, what can they do besides the regular roles that we know to be quiet, take time out, take this? How can we, without being confrontational, how can we be able to calm each other down? Do you have any suggestions for that?
So I'll be the person who is angry and do that it's hard. So please remember, if you happen to be that angry person, please remember where anger comes from. Anger comes from a perception of insult or attack. That is when we become angry. And the key word here is perception. We perceive either an insult or an attack, and that is when we become angry. And anger becomes a way that we defend ourselves. What happens if that perception is actually false? So let's say you see me later in the day and I'm go shopping and I see you and I don't acknowledge you, and you're just thinking to yourself, who the hell does he think he is? Here I am smiling and saying salam, and wallahi I didn't see you. Have you looked at a person in the eye and you did not even see them? Okay, I did not really see you, but you perceived my behavior as an insult and you felt dismissed. But the reality of it is, it was your perception of the insult that made you angry. So the first thing is this a perception or is this real? That is, I think, is very crucial to know where our anger is coming from. And also when we allow others to, because of what they said or what they did, to get under our skin, that is surrendering a lot of power to the other person, regardless of who that other person is. And this is not to say that we should not be angry. Shafi'i is being quoted to have said, "Man istughdib wa lam yaghdab fahuwa himar." He said that a person who is being provoked into anger and does not react, meaning that he's being given every reason to be angry and he does not. He said that you're born for jackass, meaning that you are not. Your behavior is not deemed as human, because that is just not possible. So it is okay to be angry, but the question is, what are you angry about, and how much emotional intelligence do you have to regulate the amount of anger that you do? And obviously these things take time for people to have these things sink in and then finding alternatives and doing these things.
Yeah, so what I would say is I differentiate the emotion anger between the action. So we have an emotional experience of anger, and then we have an action urge. Now, certain action urges around anger are not okay. But I think if you can differentiate between the feeling, I feel angry, versus like, say, being yelled at, screamed at, hit or something like that, I think you can let the other person know, I see you're angry. Yelling and screaming is not okay. When you're able to talk about it, we'll talk about it again. You have a right to feel angry, and yelling and screaming is not okay. I'm not okay with that. I wouldn't use the words, you can't scream, just,
I feel.
yeah, I feel, or like, yelling and screaming is not okay. Then you're not pointing fingers at anyone. So I would say that's one thing I really like to emphasize in people I work with is differentiating the emotion between the action. And then even you as a receiving, right? Like, you have an emotion to feel angry at that. And then going back to the mindfulness piece, I'll share something real quickly that you can use if this is helpful for you. But you can think of a wall made of jello, okay? Think of a wall made of jello that's really, really thick. And whenever you have any input coming in, you can ask yourself these two questions. Is it true? And is this really about me? And with practice, what will happen is any input coming in, the jello wall should hopefully slow it down. And then you can say to yourself, like, is this true? Maybe they're blaming you, and you know it's not true. And then, is it about me? And probably it's not about you. So then you can stop that and take a moment to regulate yourself before you respond to them. But I think it's okay if somebody is escalating to let them know, you have a right to feel angry. These behaviors are okay. These behaviors are not okay. This is how I would deal with that.
And just taking it a little further to when that reaction isn't just yelling, but it becomes abusive, then how do you recommend responding in that situation?
So safety first.
Right.
Safety and safety of those around you and the safety of the person that you are dealing with. And confronting them at that point may not really be the best thing to do. So what happens is safety is going to be the most important thing at that moment. And unfortunately, if this is a pattern and this happens all the time, then a person may also think of safety not just for that moment, but safety as a plan all the time, such as knowing where to call, having extra money, extra set of keys for the car, for the house, knowing where to go, and so on. We would talk, to our clients about having a safety plan. If the person that you're living with is like that all the time or most of the time, then we would want to speak about alternatives, not just for that moment, but but safety is really the most important thing at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that physical violence is not okay, and so there's two types of couples that you can end up I can end up working with. There's domestic violence, which is not okay. In domestic violence, usually, the person who is acting violently has no insight, has no intention to change. There is no desire of that. I do work with high conflict couples where they may both engage in physically, inappropriate behaviors, and then letting them know physical violence is not okay, helping them to use a lot of mindfulness skills to separate before they escalate. So, I kind of see it in two different ways. But when it comes to domestic violence, we know that there's a lot more going on. There's been, a pattern that's happening where one partner is feeling less than, where the other partner is constantly using power and control. And I would say to the person that is experiencing the violence that yes, get support for yourself. This is a situation where you need to be the one to go seek help and get your support system in line before you figure out about the other person. You get your help first.
So the recommendation is that if a person is in an abusive relationship and being abused, that couples counseling would not be the direction. It would be they would get help for themselves at that point.
Yes.
And there's hotlines where I work, 267-SAFE, where people can call and help with that safety planning that you talked about, and then they can reach out for other resources after they have that safety component.
Yeah, couples counseling can only work if both are willing and both take ownership of the mess they've created, because it takes two to tango.
Are there any other questions?
Can we ask a question?
Please.
Anything that you've done that worked for you that you don't mind sharing with us, that we can actually benefit from? What have you done? Things that you've done to break the routine that you think sharing it would be good?
What I've done, or what we've done, what we practice is it's very hard to make time to communicate, within the day because we're so busy. And so I learned that, even me washing the dishes and he's doing something else, I'm not giving my undivided attention. So what we learned that was best for us, because there was a lot of times where I would be washing the dishes and he's trying to communicate and I'm not paying attention. I'm hearing, but I'm not really in tune. So what we learned to do is we will sit down, hold hands, and we will talk to each other. And everything else, at that point doesn't matter. So you're actually focused on that person, whether it may be 10 minutes a day, but that has helped us.
Thank you for sharing. Did you guys hear what she said? Please.
It's kind of going in unison with what you're saying. One of the things that has worked for us, and it works all the time, you can call it different things, but get out of the house. And what that means is you figure out at least one day a week, and it doesn't matter if it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, all day, where you're doing something outside of the house. And to her analogy, you also have to find something that meets your budget. And what you'll start finding is wherever you live, there are opportunities to do things that doesn't necessarily require a long length of time or a lot of money. But what it also does is it forces you to be creative. And then what you'll find is that you're taking, to all the points, you're taking time to figure out ways to get out of the house that are, meet your time requirements and also meet your financial needs. And you'll also create a better appreciation even for the city that you live, the neighborhood that you live, and you're giving yourself another opportunity to do these things that you're talking about, touch, time, and all that. Sometimes the problem is the environment. And it can dull your senses, and every time you get to the house, you're thinking of what needs to be cleaned, what needs to be straightened up, what yard needs to be cut. When you get outside of the house, then your attention goes to other things, and you can have a realistic opportunity to have a fresh perspective. So that's one of the things that you call it whatever you want, but for us, it's get out of the house, and it works every time. It works every time.
First time I came here, I did not dye my beard, so I went to McDonald's and they gave me the coffee for $1. I got a senior citizen discount. And I started taking my wife to McDonald's every day.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
I just, my husband and I, there's always, in any relationship, there's always things. There's always things, and what I find is that, like, when we get in an argument or something, we're always bringing up the stuff, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, or, you do this, but we never bring them up when there are issues. It's like when you do those little things, you hold it, and, or you didn't take the trash out, or you didn't do this, or you always do that. So one of the things we started implementing is we don't see ourselves when we are saying, hey, well, you don't do it. We don't mention it, so, like, in the moment, not in a, well, you ain't doing this. We try to acknowledge, and I know I do, like, hey, when you're doing something that irks me, that vexes me, say it in that moment in a positive way, not, see, you're doing it now. Not like that, but for us, because we don't see ourselves when you're telling, and in that moment, we don't realize that how I'm saying something. So for us, it's like, hey, you see that right there? That's what I'm talking about. Because we get in them arguments when you're in defense mode. I don't do that. But when we are just every day in the moments, things that disturb us, that, hey, I have an issue with that, or something, I try to be conscious of saying it in a way, because we don't hear each other. I know for me personally, I just went, okay, I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. And after 20 years, you don't make it 20 years with saying, okay, I'm done. So acknowledging that, speaking in the moment in the best way, because we have to be kind. At the end of the day, you want to be in your relationship. This is the person I'm trying to be with. If I'm trying to get out, then I can talk to you any kind of way, and it doesn't matter. But for us, like, shoot, 20? Let's get the next 20. So, and that just comes with time, because you don't know those things. You couldn't have told my 19-year-old self that, those things. So acknowledging in the moment and saying, not in emotion, but just in the spirit of, hey, you're doing it right now.
That's really true myself.
So my husband and I, we come from different island in my family, and from my island, we are more open, we are open to express our expression. That's where my parents come from. But from his side, it's more like the man is actually above the woman. So when I first started married with him, it's hard for me, just like for us, to do things in the same way. So now the thing is, what I do is I actually write everything, my feelings. So it's just like I'm doing it to my boss. So I don't get angry. I'm not emotional. So when I do cry and scream. So I write things down, and then after a couple of hours, some of them are not necessary. It's not really important. And then when you come out to yourself like that, it's more control. And then I text him, say, this is what I feel. And then usually he doesn't look at it right away, but it's for men, it's more like they're feeling. I guess they want you to, how do you say, I don't know, they want you to put them in a position where, the king, basically, above. Yes. So I don't know, that's what I feel. So sometimes if we humble ourselves, I'm gonna like have pins, you know, says, I want this for my birthday, and then like, and then he will remember, and then the least thing he does is buy me chocolate and flour every year, and then he will put in our joint account some money. This is like allocate some things, like you can buy whatever you want. Like it's not coming from him directly, but it's gonna say, okay, you can spend this like more. I mean, it's gonna like adjust. So that's nice, like that, rather than confrontational and so yeah. Maybe I and him are different. Like we like yeah, it's more like complementary. It's not.
And finding out what works for you. What works for you as a belief.
I think what works is an energy. Inshallah, we'll be there 21 years. The thing that works for us is really leaving the kids. Like making sure, because your kids become your whole world, your activities, your daily routines, and even when you come to the house, a lot of times it's like, oh, yeah, Suriati, she did this at school, and now you know this is what she's doing, she's getting ready for her college, everything is about the kids. So, we try to just like someone just we with each other, go see a movie. Or we'll try to, we were with grandma for a week to take a cruise. Like, we try to, give them their time to connect with their grandparents or whoever's watching, and then have some time where we can reconnect and not make our whole marriage about our kids. So when our kids are up and grown, we're like, who are you? Like, I don't know you. We know our kids, but we don't know each other. So we try to take time to we try to make a policy where we take a trip, just us, every year, inshallah. And then the time where it's just us. That's what we try to do.
Can we have phone number for Grandma?
Well, I want to thank you both so much. I mean, we're so lucky because Musarrat is not only a psychotherapist and part of our community, but also a mother and a wife herself. And I feel like her expertise is something that is such a value to our community. And Sheikh Yassir, a psychotherapist, a father, a husband, and a scholar. I mean, this panel is it can't be replaced. I'm so grateful to both of them for being here. So I also want to thank Muslim Space and East Austin Community of Al-Islam. Imam Asim kind of initiated this event because he knows that this is expertise we have in our community that we don't share within our community enough. And Muslim Space was so generous to right away jump on board and find a space and give us treats and everything and stream it and record it. So we're so grateful to have a community with such knowledge and wisdom and participation. Before we go, I would like to ask if there is a takeaway that you would like to send people with. There's like one thing that would make your marriage better, your relationship better, whether you're married 21 years or 2 years. What's one little takeaway that will make people's relationships better if they follow?
So thank you, Shri.
I'm telling you, I never heard before, but it's okay.
I know her brother from. I have no idea why I'm stuck with Shri. So Yasmin and Muslim Space and Shadi, and for the people who put these things together, it takes time to put these things together. So we're grateful for the people who have done this. Grateful to you for being here. And as I always tell people, if you have been speaking to people for more than half an hour, and they sat there and they listened to you, you were either fooling them or they were fooling you. So I know I'm not easily fooled. So, but the point is, your presence and patience is really remarkable, and I appreciate that. So the takeaway that I would love for myself and for you to take from here is, if you do not like how things are, then please do something about it. And that would be the most important part. And I will do my part. If the other person joins, alhamdulillah. If the other person does not join or it doesn't happen as soon as I wanted, at least I initiated that change, and that is really, really important.
thank you so much for everyone for listening and being here this kind of cool morning where you could have been at home. So, you know, one takeaway, if you can practice only one thing that I've mentioned, is to, you know, take a moment for yourself, take a deep breath before you respond, and just really check in with yourself how you are feeling about a situation before responding. So if there's only one thing that you practice or you know, take away from this, it would be that.
And Musarrat, you also are in private practice. Do you want to share that information if people do want to come to you for, you know, to further their conversation or to get some additional help for themselves or their families?
Yes, absolutely. I have a practice in Central Austin. You can find me online at www.musarratyousufali.com. So I specialize working with couples and women mainly, but I see lots of Muslims or teens, etc. And I'm going to be working on a new project. It's called Get the Love You Desire, and I'm working on the website. It's going to be an online program for women. So if you're interested or know people that are struggling that could benefit, you know, let them know. I'm still working on the website, so I'll send it to you guys and you can forward it to the community. But it will be gettheloveyouDesire.com.
Oh, what a great resource. Thank you for sharing that. And so finally, I would like to invite Imam Asam to come up and close us out with a short supplication.
But before I do, I want us to thank you for your hard work and putting this panel together and the things that you do and how hard you work in the community. I know that we acknowledge the speakers, but you know, again, in taking notes from our panelists, I want to show you some appreciation.
Yeah.
So, and you're pivotal to what we're doing, and we pray Allah keep giving you the spirit and keep igniting the fire that you have to try to find ways to give us the information that we need to make our lives better. So now I'll make dua, but I had to do that. We love you so much. We appreciate you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Oh Allah, give us good in this life. Oh Allah, give us good in the next life. Oh Allah, save us from the fire. Ameen. There's more, so I hope that you all will stay connected with us. I think we're on Facebook Live, right? So
Facebook Live's over there. I think so.
Okay, yes. So we want to enhance this, evolve this, and give more people an opportunity to tune in, and also open our community up to more people who have the skills, the professionalisms to make our lives better. Some of us didn't know that these two have the knowledge and expertise. Now people have extra options and extra resources. So I'm excited. We have more to come, and inshallah we'll expand this and give people more of an opportunity to tune in. And it doesn't just have to be Muslims. You don't have to be a Muslim to attend to our program. We feel that what we're offering is universal and will give help to all our relationships. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.